termination of the 7, I think, qualified state workers that were laid off. And I guess, Mr. Woodley, you indicated that you tried to provide a thoughtful reorganization of the department. I think that what I'd like to know is when you made the decision to reorganize the department, how did you go about making those decisions, and what counsel did you seek?
Certainly, when plans for the reorganization of that area took place, we were very thoughtful in looking at best business practices and ways to deliver better projects for the taxpayers of Iowa. So we took a long look at the way that different organizations were delivering projects and different owners, such as the state of Iowa, with the size and breadth of the projects that we have in our portfolio. We took a long look at the best practices that people were instituting.
So when you were taking a long, hard look at that, I imagine you had some folks in mind that you wanted to bring on board for these replacement positions.
No, sir, it wasn't about individuals at that point. It was about providing the best service and the methodology and the structure of the area, not about individuals.
Okay, but you had determined that the 7 people that you had working for you in their various capacities, from engineer to architect to project manager, that they were unqualified to implement this new world order, right?
Not correct. We didn't believe that they weren't qualified. We believed that there were other people that would be better qualified for that, because it was a complete...
But you didn't know who those people were.
Correct, because we believed it would be a complete change in methodology. Towards the end of the strategic planning sessions, we started to look at who would be best qualified and best suited for that. Okay. And that was our determination.
So that brings me to my next question, and that was, at the time you made those decisions, you obviously must have thought, we want to get the very best people in the country to fill these positions, because the 7 that we have are not the right people to lead this new order, right? So you want to have the biggest pool of applicants possible, correct?
We firmly believe that the talent that would be brought on board would be very instrumental in the reorganization. And we also believe that the individuals brought on board would want to be able to look at the new structure and operate that new structure without any biased opinions or past performances. So that was the decision that we made.
So as the Human Resource Department for the state of Iowa, did you post these positions?
We worked through the processes of the state of Iowa, and it was determined that the positions of which we hired would be non-merit positions, so that they did not have to be advertised or publicized.
So what is the process that you followed?
We work closely with the Human Resources Department to determine that.
Who was that at the Human Resources Department?
We work with a number of people at the Human Resources during those processes. We have personnel.
Who was the chief of the Human Resources Department at the time you were reorganized?
I believe the person that was providing leadership for Human Resources was Jeff Pangton at that time.
Okay. And Pangton said, don't post these positions, just go get the best people you can find.
I don't recall that Jeff Pangton said that. I do know that we were working through the HR process.
But you're taking out qualified architects, engineers, and project managers that you say can't cut it in the New World Order. So you're going out to find new people. My question to you is, why wouldn't you post these positions to get the most qualified applicants in the world?
We knew that it would be a disruption of service a potential disruption of service during the reorganization. It was our interest not to have a disruption of service for business continuity planning purposes. We had a very large portfolio operating at the time, $427 million in projects. And so we wanted to also be very respectful to the employees that were there at the time. So posting those positions before the layoff plan was announced, we didn't think was an appropriate measure.
But normally, isn't there a procedure for enacting a layoff?
There is, and that procedure was followed.
And what is the procedure?
It's a very detailed procedure, and I don't want to not speak to it accurately, but I do know that there is a layoff proposal that takes place, and then it reaches, I believe, through Human Resources, DAS, and the Department of Management, I believe.
And the governor's office?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. So you, the day that you conducted the layoff, September 1st, is it true that you had Brant Carr, Calvin Miller, and Evan Pagan hired?
That's correct.
And they were across the hall from the employees that were clearing out their desks?
I don't believe that's correct. I believe that the new employees began their duties around noon of the day of the layoff. And we were working to have the other employees off-site by noon of the same day, the employees that were impacted by the layoff.
Okay, the continuity piece is intriguing to me because when these employees were let go, these 7 engineers, architects, and project managers, who, by the way, appear more qualified than the folks you hire. They appear more qualified if you just look at them apples to apples. But at the time you did that, and at the time you let those others go, it's my understanding that you paid these folks that you let go for an additional 20 days. And yet they were told to clear their desks within an hour or 2 of their news that they were no longer with the department.
Yeah, that's correct. We worked really hard to make certain that they had 20 days to not report to work, but to start their transition period.
That's state law, by the way.
Correct.
Yeah.
So having them not report to work, Senator, as you had said, was something that we thought would be very helpful to them. That, along with the employee assistance program, and along with letting them know how much we were supporting them for their next endeavors as they transition out of their current positions.
But I guess you just mentioned you had a $475 million portfolio and you were bringing in some very new people to the scene. My question is, why wouldn't you at least have had your project managers transition those projects over? I mean, even if you would have given them a day to transition a project over, and they don't have to like each other, but certainly an update as to what are you working on, what are the details, who are the key contacts, what is the scope of the project, some of the transition pieces that would have been helpful to have had if you were a new person walking into the shop.
Sure, well, I certainly respect that opinion. I disagree currently, and I would have disagreed at the time. We felt that it would have created an uncomfortable experience for both the employees that were being impacted and the new employees.
Well, I would just argue that this hearing is a little bit uncomfortable as well.
Yeah,
So
I would certainly agree with that.
and so I guess to your point, we do all kinds of uncomfortable things. That's why we call it work. And these employees were professionals in every way. I met with them, I've heard from them. These committees met with them and heard from them. These are certainly not volatile people. These are people that are capable, I think, of conducting themselves in a professional manner. And if a decision was made to terminate them, I think they could at least spend a little time transitioning to new, super qualified employees that you hired and recruited and selected to come into the pool. So I disagree respectfully with your interpretation as well. What happened to the state's vertical infrastructure committee?
State's Vertical Infrastructure Committee, I believe, was disseminated or was eliminated. I don't know the exact dates to that.
Why?
The Vertical Infrastructure Committee, I believe the actual committee, it was their belief or desire to disband.
What was the purpose of the committee?
The committee at the time was to review vertical infrastructure spending.
And make determinations as to how projects should be prioritized?
Correct, from my understanding.
And at some point in this new in this new direction, it was made, a decision was made to eliminate the vertical infrastructure committee.
I believe so, yeah.
Do you know who was on the vertical infrastructure committee?
I don't recall the members at this time, no, sir.
Okay. Do you know how decisions got made after the vertical infrastructure committee was eliminated?
After the vertical infrastructure committee was eliminated, there was a process that was developed to categorize and score all needed state projects while working with state agencies.
And who was on that committee?
That was the 3 individuals within the Department of Administrative Services that were hired in the construction management area.
And how would they know what should or should not be a state priority?
They were working very closely with the agencies and helping to represent them. And so they would take input from different state agencies, and then a prioritization that was established.
Was Master Builders on that committee?
On the committee that was identifying projects?
Yes.
Not to my knowledge.
Was Building Trades on that committee?
Not to my knowledge, no, sir.
Were they on the vertical infrastructure committee?
Not to my knowledge. They certainly could have been. I'm not aware of that.
Were you on were you part of that committee that identified projects?
No, sir.
You were not.
I sat in and attended some meetings, but not all meetings, but I wasn't an actual member of the committee that I'm aware of, a designated member.
So just so that I'm clear, as chair of the infrastructure committee, when we do our appropriation to Department of Administrative Services, and this year they've requested, or the governor has requested $22 million for vertical infrastructure in the state. Then it goes to the department, and then the department has to determine how that money is spent based upon the recommendations of these 3 people that work for the Department of Administrative Services.
Yes, sir. Using information provided to them by the agencies in need.
But these three employees of state government determine how $22 million will be spent and in what order. And just so I'm clear.
Correct. I believe that the approval process happens through the legislature, is my understanding.
No,
But
the department recommends to the legislature how this money should be spent. And at the time, I thought the vertical infrastructure committee was making those recommendations, but I've since learned that it's been disbanded, and that was lost on me as chair of the infrastructure committee. So I can imagine how the public can be confused by this.
I know there's a prioritization list of all projects that are in need for state infrastructure, and all projects when working with the agencies are placed upon that list, is my understanding.
And that determination is made by these 3 new employees that came into the department.
At the time it was made by those 3. I think that the committee now is a committee of 5.
It's a committee of 5.
I believe so.
Do you know who's on that committee of 5?
I believe that just the last time that committee met, there was a committee of 5 that were all members of the design and construction team.
Well, staff just handed this to me. The 5-year capital expenditure working group, would you believe me if I told you you were on the committee?
Great, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mr. Carroll, he was on the committee, and Brant Carr was on the committee.
For the infrastructure working group,
For the expenditure working group, yep.
and there's been two different groups that have met.
So what was the other group?
There was a group that was meeting to look at overall infrastructure needs for the entire state of Iowa. And my understanding in that was that there was a belief that there would be some extra money available, or some additional money, more than typically is available, to address those needs. So there was a small group of individuals that met for that, which was considered a working group. That group is very different and not the same as the individuals that, as a standard practice, work through designated money for state projects.
Okay. Mr. Carlson, can you help him on that?
Excuse me. I'm not involved with that, so.
What are you involved with? Because I was trying to understand your title as Chief Maximization Officer. What is that title?
Chief Resource Maximization Officer.
Chief Resource Maximization Officer.
Yes.
What is that job?
Okay, that job entails, I'm the administrator for the, I would call it the statewide labor relations activities that involves 4 labor relations contracts, collective bargaining agreements. I provide staff support for collective bargaining activities. I administer the, what's called GRIP, or the Grievance Resolution Improvement Process. And that's a process whereby twice a month, 2 days, 4 times a month at 2 different locations each month, in Des Moines and in Cedar Rapids. That's the 3rd step of the grievance process. If you'd like me to explain that, I'd be happy to.
No, I don't. So you were in on the, so that you had direct knowledge on the settlement agreement as part of the grievance process.
Are we talking, which settlements are we talking about?
We're talking about the 24 settlements that were identified that represented over $500,000 to hush money paid to state employees for their silence.
I was not directly involved in that. My job is to maintain records and databases to track progress associated with various grievances.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand. You are the chief resource officer for maximization of.
I have other items I can tell you that I do.
No, I'm just trying to understand. You oversee the grievance process. You understand the settlement process. Or, as part of your job. That falls under your bailiwick. That's in your wheelhouse.
As far as accounting for what step grievances are in, when the first step meeting or second step meeting has occurred, the second step answer has occurred, when it goes to GRIP. As far as the detail related to those grievances, I have no involvement with.
You have no involvement. Okay. All right. Well, so you keep track of the data, though. You have all the data.
Correct.
You're the data management record storage for grievances.
Among other things, yes.
Among other things. So that's why you got sent to go through 45 boxes of papers through the Vilsack and Colbert administration for grievances that occurred.
Well, I understand what documents to look for when you're going through grievance files.
And who sent you to do all that?
I believe Director Carroll asked me to do that.
Okay. Well, thank you for your honesty. That's all I have.
Okay, Representative Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.